What's up, guys, and welcome back to the shop. We finally have the Yamaha R7 back in here. We've got another race coming up here next weekend, so yeah, I got a lot of work to do to kind of get it ready to go. But one thing that I haven't done, which is good for you guys as well, is in the manual it says every 2 years we need to be, changing out the brake fluid, and every 3 years potentially swapping out some of the seals within the brakes. So today what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this brown brake fluid by bleeding it out of the system. What we will also do here is I will show you guys two different ways to do it, which one is going to be with just like a bottle and a hose that is very easy to acquire, be very cheap to do. That's method number one that I'll show you guys how to do. Method number two is going to be utilizing something like this, which is a Mightyback, and what this will do is allow us to apply pressure to the system, open up the bleeder, and it's just going to pull all the fluid out for us. The good part about this job, as long as you don't mess it up and get air in the system, it is a very easy thing to do. So let's get it started. First step here is to go after this cap. We're going to go ahead and take it off so that we can see what is inside as we drain, because we cannot let this thing get empty. So it's just a little Phillips screwdriver here that we need to loosen up. Go ahead and just take that bracket nice and loose like that. We could potentially just leave it there. So all we need to do is unscrew the cap and get it off. Now you'll also notice there's this little plunger in here. We want to take this off. And for another really important thing when it comes to brake fluid, this stuff is very, very corrosive, and it will just strip your paint right off of your bike. So you need to be very careful during this entire process not to get any of this fluid on anything. So you can see here we got this little cover on our brake bleeder here, which try not to lose them. We do have what looks like an 8mm for our brake bleeder valve. I'll link some of this hose down below, but basically you could get hose like this, cut a hole in any jug, and just run this hose down to the bottom and use that. I do have this fairly inexpensive little thing, which I kind of like, as it is magnetic. This is fairly small hose, but what's perfect about it is that it will fit over our brake bleeder. To me, this has always been the best method. Even when I go ahead and show you guys how to use the Mightyback itself, I always buy some of this, and I'll use the Mightyback's hose, but then I'll cut some of this and stick it inside the Mightyback hose and use this over the brake bleeder instead of using the brake bleeder tool that comes with the Mightyback. But I'll show you guys that later. This is the simplest way to do it. We have our wrench on there, and you can see I'm using the open end, not the box end. The box end is more of a stripping device than a functional tool. So there is our setup. We have our hose on our brake bleeding valve, we have our wrench set up, and we have the container that the liquid's going to go into. So there's two things we're going to do here. First is going to be to pump this brake 3 times, and then you're going to hold. While holding this brake and we open up the brake bleeding valve, we're going to feel this get closer and closer to the grip itself. So the process is going to be 1, 2, 3, hold. With the other hand, we're going to open up the brake bleeding valve. It's going to let fluid out. We're going to close the brake bleeding valve, and then we're going to let go. The whole point to that process and doing it that way is so that the fluid comes out and we close it before we get this brake all the way to the hand grip, so that we don't get back pressure pulling the fluid back into the system. We want to just spit it out, close it real quick, pump some more, spit it out, close it real quick, and just continue that process. Now, while you're doing it, the whole entire time, we need to be watching this fluid level, and we're not going to let it go below the low. So you can see we got high and low, and the fluid that's in there currently is sitting at a high. So we're going to just drain just down to low, and then we're going to fill it back up with some more. Now, you could cheat a little bit, and you could pull some of that fluid out with some kind of suction device, and then refill it with some cleaner fluid so that you're not running it through the whole system. That's just another device you need to find, build, create, buy, and I'm just going to show you this process of how to go through it without doing stuff like that. So here's our first attempt. We're going to 1, 2, 3, and hold. I'm going to open it up. We're going to let that fluid go out. You can see it only took a few seconds and immediately dropped. 1, 2, 3, hold. Crack it open, you feel it. You feel your fingers go down. Close it immediately. 1, 2, 3, hold. Close it back up. 1, 2, 3, hold. Close it back up. Check our fluid. And we have only gone down maybe a quarter. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, hold. Close. 1, 2, 3, hold. Close. 1, 2, 3, hold. Close. Another thing to note here is if you're opening it up too far, what you're going to get is a little bit of bleed off of the actual bleeder valve. So remember, you don't have to open it up very far to get the fluid to come out. So we are using a .4 fluid, which is what this bike needs. You could buy some more motorcycle specific stuff if you think you need that or want that or whatever, but at the end of the day, you need .4. Another really important thing about brake fluid is you want them in a sealed case. So if you're buying this stuff to do your car and you do your car and you have a bunch left and you set it on the shelf thinking I'll use this later, don't do that. The second this gets air in it, that air is going to get inside of this brake fluid. Now it takes a long time for it to like saturate into the brake fluid and make the brake fluid essentially bad, but my recommendation, open it, use it, and get rid of it. So I'm just going to lightly fill this guy up to get it back up to the top. So you can see the process can take quite a while, hence the use of the Mightyback. But I can already see the fluid is getting much cleaner as we go, which is exactly what we're looking for. You can see it's not brown anymore. It's actually starting to come out clear. You can see what the original fluid looked like down here. Good and brown, ready to be replaced. And you can see our fluid is starting to get clear. So the more you keep doing it, the more you're going to get, you know, the bad fluid out and better fluid in. So it's kind of up to you. Like realistically, you should keep going until it's clear and then move on to the next brake. But I'm going to show you guys how to start using the Mightyback itself. So for the Mightyback, we have a bunch of different hoses. And what kind of sucks about when you keep these things for this long, like I have, is the hoses start getting a little discolored and they start getting fragile, which means a lot of the time you need to cut off a chunk before you start. So there we go, there's our Mightyback on. We have this cap and another hose. We want this hose on here before we put this on. And then from there, you've got another hose and this will go to our brake. But what you'll notice is this is way too big to go on our brake, hence the fact that I like these smaller lines. What these Mightyback kits come with are basically little rubber nipples. Not only go into these hoses, like so, but they also fit on top of the brake bleeding valve. So I personally have never liked these, but that is their point in life. So we'll go ahead and pull off our other hose. But same concept here. You stick this on top and you have your wrench on here to open. But this time what you're doing is you're going to apply a vacuum to it. And you can see now that I'm holding, and I'm not really holding, so I've got about 15, 14, 13, so I'm losing PSI, which means somewhere in the system is a small leak, which in my opinion is annoying. But this, you can pump it up real good, open it up, and it's just going to suck all the fluid out. You can keep on pumping. Make sure you watch your reservoir close before your reservoir gets too low. Add some more brake fluid and continue on. And you can watch that brake fluid just start dropping as you're going. But in my opinion, it's much better when you have this hose, this thin styled hose, on the nipple because it gives a better seal instead of this. But that's kind of up to you. And like I said, this stuff gets fragile. You can see how destroyed this one is. And that's from just being on a brake bleeder too long. And you can tell all of this is hard and fragile. So I need to get further down this thing's line. And we don't need a lot, because a lot of this is just going to go directly into our hose. And it looks like my hose it's just a little too old. So when these are brand new, they're a little bit thinner, but you can tell like I've left fluid in these, so they fall out real easy. So that kind of sucks. That means I am stuck to just this method. Obviously does get the job done. It does get the job done fairly quickly. But I would also say that I pretty much have gotten all the fluid out of this line here. And that it's coming out nice and clean now, clean-ish. I'd say by now I've definitely gotten it. So now at this point, clean up our little valve just in case there's a little fluid on there. Put our little cap back on and shift over to the other side. And the rear is the exact same thing. So I'll go ahead and end the video here. You have the basic understanding of how to do it. Whatever you do, do not let air get inside there, because once you introduce air up here and run it through all the ABS and everything, like that's a whole nother problem for you guys to deal with. I know on cars, in most instances, if you do that, you basically have to have a scan tool that is going to trigger the ABS to bleed it. So be careful if you're doing that. Make sure you do this nice, slow. You could do it with a friend that's just straight up watching that the entire time. But I would suggest you don't get the air in there. Alright, so thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope it was helpful. The next thing we're going to be doing to this bike is I do have the switches to remove the key entirely. I have the new Aim Solo 2 that I'm going to install, and we still have the axle things we need to put in, as well as a shark fin, and most importantly, now I have to take all this brake fluid out again because we're going to strip out all these lines and we're going to make this thing no more ABS, not have ABS anymore. So thanks again, and I'll see you next week. Bye!